I'm blown away by the conversation we had with Dr. Rachel Rubin. First of all, I love when there's another physician on and you guys go into this mind meld of all the things and speak about with such intelligence. But this is a physician who has really created a business, a different model for being a doctor, which is really kind of fascinating, where she has said, I'm not going to take insurance, which, like that or not like that, that's the choice that she made. And she's in the DC area. And so she spends an hour with patients.
Yeah, that is literally unheard of, at least in my neck of the woods. I also find it fascinating how so super specialized she is in the sexual health world. And this is something that she really had to pursue actively, because it's not something that we're taught in med school or in residency in any sort of volume.
Yeah. And one of the other interesting things she said, which was really a new perspective, is we speak to so many people focused on women's health. Because she's a specialist in urology, she sees a lot of men. And she really says she sees a lot of couples, then having an understanding of, both physiologies and the emotional pieces, and having enough time to learn about their relationship has really enabled her to make an impact on some of these relationships. So I think everyone will be blown away by her energy. We could have talked to her for hours, and it's exciting to see someone doing something so different and doing it so successfully.
Welcome to the Business of the V. Hello, friends and colleagues. I'm Dr. Alyssa Dweck.
And I'm Rachel Braun-Sherrill. Each week, we bring you the most fascinating investors, inventors, entrepreneurs, academics, and healthcare practitioners who are making things happen in women's sexual and reproductive health.
If you are a woman, know a woman, have a business, or care about your V health and wellness, fasten your seatbelts and listen in to another informative and inspiring episode.
We are so excited to have our guest today, Dr. Rachel Rubin, who is like a quadruple threat. She's a practicing physician, she's a researcher, she's a business owner. So perfect for us on Business of the V, which is the intersection of everything. Welcome, Dr. Rubin.
Thank you. So thrilled to be here. What an honor.
So Rachel, tell us a little about your practice, because as somebody who's been part of a huge multi-specialty group for basically my whole career, I'm very interested in the structure that you've created in your own practice.
Yeah. So medicine is very broken today. Everyone knows it. We all talk about it quite often, and I can't fix it myself. The 10-minute visit, the doctors who are seeing 30 patients a day, it is an assembly line. It is McDonald's. It's impossible. Even when you care, even when you know a lot, even when your heart is in the right place, you cannot give your all, and you feel horrible at the end of the day. And so when I did my sexual medicine fellowship, the only way I can be successful and do a really good job is by really getting to know my patients. So if I don't spend time with my patients to find out, well, what are your goals? What are you bothered by? And how can we make things better? I can't be successful in the work that I do. And so I made a decision very early on. I said, I cannot beg insurance companies to value this work. Nobody will ever value sexual medicine, let alone women's sexual health. I treat about 40% men. And so the work that I do is not valued. It's not valued by venture capital companies. It's not valued by hospital systems. It's not valued by anybody. And so I had no choice but to hang a shingle and to say, okay, everybody leave me alone. I'm going to practice medicine my way. Nobody's going to tell me how hard to work. Nobody's going to tell me how much time I can spend with a patient. And most importantly, no one's going to tell me my value and how much money they think I deserve to make. And so if you build it, they will come. And I do mean the pun intentionally there, right? Like if you build it, they will come. And so patients want time. They want expertise. They want someone who gives a crap about them. And that's my thing is I always tell people I have two things that make me magical. I have no magic to offer you, but number one, I spend a lot of time to get to know you. And number two, I genuinely care about you as human beings, but I have to get to know you to figure out how I can help you. And so it's been incredible. People really get it. They get it. And it stinks because I only have so many hours in the day. So I do have a long waiting list, and I have 2 small kids, and I'm trying to learn what self-care means. But it's been the best, year of my life building this practice. It really has been.
Amazing.
And prior to building this, what sort of situation were you practicing in?
I was working as an employee at another practice. And so similar model, not quite the same, but a similar model. And, for lots of reasons, I decided, I really wanted control. I wanted to learn the business side of things. I wanted to make my own decisions and really prove my own worth to myself, and to say, this is what I want to do. This is how much time I want to spend with people, and not have to answer to anyone else. And so I always joked, what do I know about business? I'm a urologist, and it's very overwhelming. But I had this moment of, wait a minute, I learned how to do penile implants. How hard can QuickBooks be? How hard can it be? And so what I have realized this year has been the incredible community that exists around entrepreneurship, which I, as a surgeon and urologist and a woman, never had any insight into. And so I joined a couple of communities that have just blown my socks off, of other just incredible humans who just want you to succeed. And so your successes are their successes. Your failures are their opportunities to help you, because everyone's going to have challenges. As I said, there's no business or no entrepreneurship journey. There's no problems. It's how you see them as opportunities and how you move forward and pivot. And just when you come at it with service and love, which is really how I'm in this, because I genuinely want to practice good medicine, and nobody else will allow me to do that. They're not my biggest problem is that I don't like that I have a wait list, that I want to see people sooner, that people are suffering. And so I do have to figure out how to grow and train others and build a bigger, I'm a little afraid to build because I love how small it is and how I have control. So I got lots of problems, ladies, but they just are so much fun. And I've never been in this space before. This is very new for me.
It sounds like you need to clone yourself a couple of times. So I'm going to ask, do you even take insurance? And if not, do you get real pushback on that? Because I know in my practice, it's if we don't take their insurance, they're not coming. But I think that's just what we've trained them to do.
I don't take insurance, and it's not, as I said, I personally cannot fix medicine right now. And so, of course, we give people out of network who have out of network benefits. We give them super bills. And listen, I'm in the Washington, D.C. area where there's a concierge doctor on every block. And so it's a little bit more understood in this area. And I am not you are a gynecologist who takes care of all things and does annuals and sees people more regularly. I think of myself as sort of that super specialist where people are like, you know what? I've seen the 20 doctors. I've already done all these things. I've already spent. So I see challenging things. When I get a patient and again, challenging patients are different when you have time. So what's challenging for someone who only has 10 minutes, when you have an hour, it's actually much easier to be a detective and to kind of really educate, figure out what's going on, and get a really good diagnosis and plan. And so I love the challenge. Those patients, I joke, in the DC area, I tell all my referring providers, and I have such an incredible community of referring it's an incredible community in DC, but I always say, I'm Dr. Rubin. I do the shit you don't want to do. It's not that you don't want to do it. It's that you don't have time for it. Yeah. And you've got 20 people waiting. That person who's had 30 years of pelvic pain or has that little libido complaint, I genuinely care about the libido complaint. You do too, but you just don't have time for it, right? And you don't have time to really go into it deeply. And so because of that, it has allowed me to be a trusted referral source when people know if they're going to say, okay, I always joke, it's the third person who tells you about me when you finally make the appointment. And then if you have to wait, you're pretty annoyed. But it takes 3 people. What do you mean she doesn't take insurance? Wait a minute, I can't do that. I don't X, Y, and Z. And then you hear the stories, you see the testimonials, you hear people, and I have to remind myself about how much value, right? I see people coming back who said, oh my God, you saved my relationship. Yeah. Oh my God, I feel like myself again. Oh my gosh, I am excited. So my favorite is people come back and say, Dr. Rubin, I came to see you for pain with sex. And yeah, it doesn't hurt anymore, but I didn't think I would like it again. I didn't think I would want it again. I didn't ask you for that. It's those stories that just are, how could I not do this work? I mean, it is so rewarding. It's so valuable. And so it is frustrating. My dream, and you've got a lot of entrepreneurs listening, my dream is to have a billionaire come in and give me a huge center where we do provide really free or discounted care so that I can train people how to do this. So I can do fellowships. But in the female sexual medicine space, it's very challenging to find funding. And so in the male sexual medicine world, there is a lot more funding opportunities for fellowships. So we have 27 fellowships that focus on men's sexual health, and one fellowship in the entire country that even acknowledges women's sexual health, just one.
So you have, I've had so many questions. One of them you just answered. I wanted to know, in your experience, certainly in ours, from a business perspective and investment perspective, there's an enormous difference between, what people are interested in. But I find it fascinating because, you hear the old sort of rub is that doctors aren't good business people historically, but now people like both of you have figured out how to take those skills and make changes where you can in the system. I'm curious, with an hour, and you are a specialist, do you become the therapist, the hairdresser, the marriage counselor, the fashion consultant? That's, people don't have those experiences where you have an hour with someone who is so clearly interested in your well-being, your energy and your passion literally leaps off the screen. So
I would imagine we go to church. We go to church. I mean, it is, and I'm a nice Jewish gal. We go to church. I mean, it is so transformative to see people sitting there. And at the end of the visit, you see this moment of like, I've never had a conversation like that with somebody. I've never gone there with someone. I just told you things because no one has ever asked me the question. Really think to yourself, even personally, I have never had a doctor have any element of curiosity about my libido, my orgasm, my pain, my sexual health. And they all know what I do for a living because, as you know, I never stop talking about it. And so, so if they're not asking me, right, like literally, open book, ask me anything, it doesn't happen. And so when people come to see me, it is a really incredible moment. I had a young man in just the other week, and at the end of the visit, he said, he had saved up a lot of money, came to see me. He had a very complex issue, and I really talked to him about it. And I had a great plan. We had a great plan together. And he looked at me and he said, is this how the other half lives? Like, is this how people, experience life? I said, you know what? I have patients who are billionaires and patients who are, doing GoFundMes to come to see me, and they all get the same bag. Yeah. Oh yeah. I've had patients who've needed surgical procedures, who have had churches do GoFundMes. And that woman is pregnant right now from the old fashioned way, right? Is able to have the marriage and the life and the things that she wanted to. And so it was a good story. It was a very good story. But the problem is even when you have a lot of money, the training is not there for doctors to give you that good care. And that's what I'm trying to change. That's why I speak so loudly. That's why I'm involved with societies that are focused on the evidence, because there's a lot of people who are willing to take your money, but aren't necessarily backed by a lot of evidence and just really high quality care. And women are accepting of that, as opposed to pushing to say, why don't we have more evidence? Why aren't we, holding medicine and science to a higher standard?
I'm curious, do you have it must be hard to juggle female sexual health and male sexual health. And it almost sounds like it's a little bit of a 50-50. Do you find that difficult? I mean, because they really are such, they both are such large fields with lots of complexity.
So I love it because actually I take what I know from men's sexual health and urology, and it's all homologs. The head of the penis and the head of the clitoris are exactly the same. The vulvar, the labia majora and the scrotal skin, it's exactly the same thing. And so all the pathologies kind of overlap, and we can take what we know from one and work with the other. Actually, I'll give you a perfect example. Low libido. we think of men as having all the opportunities in sexual medicine, but we actually don't have FDA approved products other than testosterone for men in low libido. We've got 2 FDA approved products for women that work, and about 60% of women who take them are wonderful and fabulous. And guess what? They work in 60% of my male patients who take them. They work fabulously in men. And so we actually do borrow a lot. And what I love is that because I see both or all genders, any love triangle that comes into my office, I can help navigate. Because if I fix all the this is the problem with the world. All my colleagues, they fix all the erections, they get them bigger and harder and straighter and stronger, and there's no place for them to go. And so, as you know, right, you do this every day. And so if I help one side, it's actually hurting the couple. It's if it is a couple, it's hurting people. And so I love that I can take, and I see many couples, I see many patients where I see both of them. And it's just lovely. It's lovely to kind of have that insider information, to say, well, she doesn't get pleasure from X, Y, and Z, and that's what gives you pleasure. And so can we come up with a compromise? I do a lot of counseling, right? You said, I do a lot of psychology, and it's not really psychology. I'm not a trained therapist, but because I talk to people and I genuinely care about people, I'm a little bit of a psychourologist, right? I'm gonna do a little bit of therapy, but it's also getting people to talk about things that from a biological perspective that they're not so comfortable talking about. Like, hey, I make devices like sex toys, I make them medicine, right? Devices are not about you being, sex tech. To anyone who's listening in the sex tech industry, thank you for what you do, right? You're doing incredible work, and sex tech today is amazing. So introducing octogenarians into sex tech and saying like, hey, you want oral sex. Your, 80-year-old wife does not want to give you oral sex anymore. What about this device that feels like oral sex? It's a win-win. Here's what it looks like. Your arthritis, you don't have to worry about your arthritis anymore. And bringing that into the conversation as though, hey, your diabetes makes it harder for you to orgasm. So how can we get you to have more pleasure? I make sex kind of boring, sound like diabetes and high blood pressure. So it gets people able to talk about it with their partners in ways that they're shocked that they've ever been able to do that before.
So here's today's hot flash. The U.S. concierge medicine market is expected to reach $13.3 billion by 2030. Concierge medicine being a subscription-based model rather than an insurance model.
Here's what I want to do. When I started in this space, my kids were 9 and 12 on the business side and, talking about vaginas and sexual pleasure. And, now they're adults. And I would love your kids to sit with my kids and they could tell them what they're in for in terms of people stopping you. And I'm not a physician. I don't even play one on TV. That the questions people ask you. And I think your point is so well taken. And I see this every time, anytime someone gets to speak with Alyssa and see how she listens and that she's clearly a different, better kind of physician than most people have had the benefit of going to. And same with you, they feel like it's manna from heaven. They want to ask all kinds of questions. And we used to feel like when we were talking about, when I was in my first sexual health business, we were like at a Who concert. We're going to be trampled because even though we just had information on the business side and enough physiology to be dangerous, the pent up desire to have someone to talk to about these complex issues it's overwhelming. And, it's evidenced by the fact that besides, like, I could see who wouldn't want to go to you. I want to move to Maryland so I could be your patient. In terms of the energy and there's also a feeling in medicine. I'm curious, you just described it, Rachel, but I'm curious for you, Alyssa, have you seen sort of this weariness that physicians have had or are experiencing through COVID, having been on the front lines, having, they're been understaffed, broken. People are not coming back to work, doctors are retiring. Yeah. This is also a pandemic, I think, for our medical care.
I couldn't agree more. I see people feel burnt out, and you can see it in their day-to-day behaviors. Our staffs are limited because so many people just left or don't want to work any further. That was why I was honing in, Rachel, on, what was your impetus to start your own practice? Because, it probably in part was that you wanted to take control of what turned out to be a pretty rough situation for a lot of us in healthcare. I wanted to back up a little bit because, in med school, maybe we get 30 minutes in sexual health, and it's probably 15 of that is for contraception and the other 15 maybe for STIs. Yeah, exactly. So tell us about your training. Like, what extra training did you do to have such expertise in this field?
Absolutely. So I just, did medical school for, 4 years of medical school. I did urology training, which is 5 years of surgical training to become a urologist, right? We're penis doctors, but we do kidneys and bladders and urethras and prostates and things like that. And I would say I got some men's sexual health knowledge in that work, and actually was at a conference presenting on prostate cancer research and went to a course on female sexual medicine that my mentor, Irwin Goldstein, was teaching. And I was an early resident and had sat in this course and just had this moment of like, holy crap, this is my people. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And so I ended up doing the fellowship with Dr. Irwin Goldstein. So after 5 years of urology training, I spent a year out in San Diego training, learning, doing research, doing incredible work in both male and female sexual medicine. And so from there, it has been a passion of mine. I'm very involved in the ISWISH, which is the International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health. I'm the education chair. And so I am all things evidence-based advocacy, education. I help a lot with that course that I went to as a young resident. I've been teaching it every year with Dr. Goldstein, since I graduated. And so it's so incredible to be this early in my career and to be able to be a voice and to be loud and to make real change. Kind of sad because it's a wide open space, right? There's room for all of us because there are so few people who sort of make this work something that they're passionate about. And yes, I do see male patients, but my social media presence ends up being very female focused because there aren't that many sort of people with megaphones in this space. There are a few, but not enough.
I bet you couldn't imagine when you were in medical school with your 62 seconds that you both got in sexual medicine saying, my social media platform is very feminine. It's like it's a whole brave new world from probably how you were trained to do this and what you've built. How do you interact with industry? You talked about you're involved in some of these societies that I know Alyssa is also involved with, but are you finding that you're fielding, given your platform and how clear you are, that you're getting inquiries from large companies who want to figure out how to take some of your knowledge into their product development?
So I'm starting to kind of get a lot more of that. The more sort of, I think I this year I've gotten a lot more exposure than I ever had before. And it's again, that there was a big New York Times article that had a picture of us talking about the work that we're doing. And that sort of don't recommend that if you like your email to be organized. And so that really did see a big increase. And I have seen more of an increase from interest in certain industry. And what I would say is it's very interesting because we need industry to care about this. We need industry to invest in good, high quality research and products. And I think it's not that beneficial for them to do that all the time, because you can really make a lot of money without doing that work, without doing that evidence, without doing that research. And so, I think there is so much opportunity to do really high level research and to do get a better understanding of how these supplements, medicines, devices, apps, telemedicine things, there's so much opportunity, but we don't often kind of put them to the test to say, like, let's actually research this. Let's actually look at this. So I'm particular in who I do work with companies. Every once in a while they want to design a study. We have a couple of research projects that we're working on. Actually, to give you an idea, during the pandemic, we were doing a pelvic floor botulinum toxin study. And there's a lot of companies, so I won't even say which company it was, but they stopped the study early because they said, and I quote, "We had a change of leadership and we decided women's health was not a priority." Like, they said it on the phone out loud. I heard it. My colleagues heard it, right? They said, and it was a magnificent study that showed, I think, of a few things that have changed my practice fundamentally, it is pelvic floor Botox, botulinum toxin, not the different brands, but botulinum toxin into the pelvic floor for the correct patient. Not everybody would do well. It's changed my practice. And so it's things like that I try not to get too excited about industry, because what I have seen, venture capital industry, they'll flip on you real quick, right? So you're the golden child until you're not the golden child. So that's why, again, building my own business has been so rewarding, because I can really start to say, okay, how does this, I don't know what it's going to look like, at the next stage of it all, but it's been, we want more industry to care about this, but we really want to encourage them to do more research.
I'm curious, because there's always been this thought that, do you sell products in your office or do you not sell products in your office? Is there any sort of conflict? What's your feeling on that? And if you do you have any favorite go-tos?
Yeah, I have, I don't sell any. I just got started a year ago and I'm doing it all myself. So I do payroll and I do, I do everything. Like I do order supplies. I'm still checking. So I need to.
We used to joke. I had a Costco card, so I was VP of operations and supplies.
I am also VP of operations, and Costco gloves are awesome. And I use the Chuck's pads, the puppy pads. So they have many uses. I'm doing it all. So right now I don't have, I don't know what it's going to look like a couple years from now. I don't sell products in my office. I do have a lot of products of sort of things that I've just learned that patients love over the years. And so I have curated all sorts of tips and tricks and sort of things that I have known. And I actually love devices because I love learning about them, and patients will strangers will email me and say, hey, Rubin, we found this device. My husband had prostate cancer and this device was life-changing for us. And they know they can email me those things because they can't tell their girlfriend. They can't tell their, they know they can email me those things. And so I do have a lot of things that I love, but I haven't yet. And that's the other thing is if I am sort of in with a product specifically, it's a little bit challenging, right? Because you want to have some ability to just use whatever or change or kind of change your mind. So I don't have any sort of Rubin branded, sex toys. Who knows? Maybe next decade or something.
So speaking of the next decade, when you look forward, you were shot out of a rocket ship in the past year. You've built this. They are coming more than you can handle. What do you see? Where do you see yourself being 5 years from now? Have you cloned yourself, as Alyssa said? Have you changed how people are trained when they're doing urology fellowships?
I've learned a lot about limiting beliefs, and I've never thought of myself as a dreamer. I've never thought sort of past today or even seen the vision of what it looks like. And I really have been trying to push myself because I've already succeeded past my wildest dreams that I didn't even have. And so it's like, oh, okay, I didn't think I was smart enough to go to med school, and now I'm a doctor. I didn't think I could be a surgeon. I never thought I would match into urology, and here I am, a urologist. Sort of, it's a wild world to think you can't do something and then do it and do it well. And so I have a lot of, I got to work on my own mental issues, but in terms of in the future, self-care and mental health care, all good. In terms of the future, my dream is to have a place where I can train people how to do this at a high level, that I can have a research center. I can tell you about the thing I'm most proud of. The thing I am most proud of is that a year ago, I made an announcement that I wanted to mentor and support as many medical students as I could humanly find and support and find and cultivate. And every month I have a mentorship research group. We call it the Sexual Medicine Research Team, or SMRT, SMART. It is the SMART group. We meet once a month. It is a research and mentorship group. I have over 100 students that are involved, and it is growing like wildfire to the point where they have now created a board. We have 2 presidents, a vice president, a research coordinator. We have no funding. We have nothing. And these are medical students who just give a crap about this stuff. So we're going to do projects together. We're going to do advocacy projects and education projects. The sky is the limit. I'm going to make them write books so that we can, get funding so that we can pay for their travel to go to conferences and speak. So my dream is to replace me in people by like numerous people. It's not about me. It's about the fact that this field needs to be legitimate. It needs to be infiltrating every department, every practice to say, this matters. Sexual medicine matters. And we believe that we can practice good medicine. So if that is the thing, so yes, for all you billionaires listening, and thank you for being billionaires, right? That is the thing, so I need to learn how to be a better mentor and how to manage people and how to manage big projects. I am making it up as I go along, and it's so fun. And really to let these medical students know that it doesn't have to look the way that they think it has to look. It doesn't have to look in the broken system. And they're watching me, they're watching my colleagues and my friends. I have a lot of friends on the calls too, and it is infectious and they want to do this. And so that's the thing that gives me the biggest sort of pride and dopamine.
The good kind of infectious. It's amazing. And one of the things you said earlier, when you think of all the quotes, and I'm sure Alyssa has had crazy things said to her, when I started in this business and I was doing customer service and I picked up the phone and I was working for a particular product and someone said, "This stuff really works. Thank you, God." And so when I had to travel, when my kids were little, I would say, mommy's going out to do God's work, just you use what you can, but just, the enthusiasm and the passion. One of the reasons I love being in this space as a business person and doing this podcast with Alyssa is because we meet people like you who have this energy and passion that could, in the most positive way, bowl you over and make you feel hopeful about a future that looks better and different than where we are right now.
Best of luck to you, Rachel. Honestly, your energy is literally contagious.
We have so much work to do that you could cry every single day in thinking about listen, we had a full page spread. The most gifted article in the New York Times this year was the clitoris heard around the world. And what it was at its basic level was a full page.
I must have received that from friends like
a million times, right? It was a full page in the science section that all it did, the magic was it said, we give women a mirror and we teach them about their own bodies. That was a full page in the science section in 2022. Am I grateful for the exposure? Of course, it was so kind and lovely. It's a wonderful article. But that's what makes full page science is women looking at their own bodies and learning about their own tissue, right? If you distill down what I love so much about my job is that I take brilliant, educated, incredible humans, and I just teach them basic like anatomy and physiology of how it works and how can we make it work better? How can hormones help? How can dopamine boosters help? How can pelvic floor physical therapy help, right? How can these things help to just make you have more fun? Because really sex is supposed to be about fun. Unless you're trying to make babies, which I don't recommend. I have two, it's a challenging thing during a pandemic to have babies, but the fun part.
That's right? A whole nother segment.
A whole other podcast, the fun parts.
Well, thank you so much. And we really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Don't forget, subscribe to our podcast at businessofthev.com for the latest trends and trendsetters in women's health and business.